The antique shop sat between two abandoned buildings at the end of a narrow street, nobody used anymore. I only noticed it because of the storm. Rain was crashing against the windows of my car, and I needed somewhere dry to wait for it to pass. The sign above the shop was hanging crooked, moving slightly in the wind like it was barely holding on. The words on it were faded so badly I could hardly read them. Inside, the air smelled old, like dust, wet wood, and something rotten hidden deep inside the walls. Every object in the store looked forgotten. Broken clocks, burned candles, portraits with cracked faces. It felt less like a shop and more like a place where unwanted things were left to die. Then, I saw the painting. It was hanging alone at the back of the room under a weak, yellow light. A woman dressed completely in black sat in a chair, staring straight ahead. Her face looked pale and strangely realistic. Not beautiful, not ugly, just wrong somehow. The longer I looked at her eyes, the more uncomfortable I felt. An old man suddenly spoke behind me. "You shouldn't take that one. You shouldn't take that one." His voice nearly made me jump. I asked him why. He stayed quiet for a few seconds, then said, "Because she watches." I laughed a little, expecting him to smile too, but he didn't. His face stayed completely serious. I should have left right then, but for some reason, I couldn't stop staring at the painting. It felt like it wanted me to take it home, like it had been waiting for someone, and before I even realized it, I was handing the old man cash, while his eyes stayed fixed on me with this strange look of pity. The first night, I hung the painting in the hallway outside my bedroom. I didn't even know why I put it there. It just felt like the right place for it. The apartment was small, so every time I walked to the kitchen or bathroom, I had to pass by it. At first, it was just another creepy decoration, nothing more. But by the second night, I started noticing small things. The woman's eyes looked different. I know how crazy that sounds. I kept telling myself it was the lighting or my imagination playing tricks on me, but I could swear she wasn't looking straight ahead anymore. Her eyes looked slightly turned, like she was following me whenever I moved through the hallway. I stalked in front of the painting for almost 10 minutes, trying to prove myself wrong. Moved left, then right. Her gaze stayed locked on me. That's when the uneasy feeling started growing in my chest. Later that night, I woke up thirsty around 3 a.m. The apartment was dark, except for the faint streetlight coming through the window. As I walked into the hallway, I froze. The painting looked closer, not physically closer, just different. The woman's face seemed larger somehow, like she had leaned forward inside the canvas. Her expression also changed. Before, her mouth was straight and emotionless. Now it looked slightly curved. Not enough to call it a smile, but enough to make my skin crawl. I couldn't sleep after that. The next morning, I tried taking the painting down. The moment my hands touched the frame, I heard a loud creaking sound from inside the wall behind it. I stepped back instantly, and for 1 second, I swear the woman in the painting blinked. After that night, the apartment stopped feeling like home. Every room felt colder than before, especially the hallway where the painting hung. I started leaving lights on constantly because the darkness made me nervous. It felt like something was waiting for me whenever the apartment became quiet. Then the noises started. At first, it was soft, scratching coming from the hallway after midnight, slow, careful, like fingernails dragging across the wall. Every time I opened my bedroom door, the sound stopped instantly. The painting always looked normal when I checked it, but only for a second. The longer I stared, the more details changed. The shadows around the woman seemed darker every night. Her chair looked slightly turned now, angled more toward my bedroom door, and her eyes, they no longer looked painted. They looked wet, alive. I stopped inviting friends over because I didn't want to sound insane trying to explain it. But one evening, my friend Daniel came by unexpectedly to drop something off. The second he walked into the hallway, he stopped talking. He stared directly at the painting. "Why does that thing look at people like that?" he whispered. The fear in his voice hit me hard because I hadn't told him anything. Before I could answer, he laughed nervously and said he was joking, but I could tell he wanted to leave. He stayed less than 5 minutes, That same night, I heard whispering for the first time. I was lying in bed scrolling through my phone when I heard a faint voice outside my room. I pulled my headphones off and listened carefully. It sounded like a woman speaking too softly to understand. The voice was slow, calm, almost comforting. I opened my bedroom door, and the whispering stopped immediately. The hallway was empty except for the painting hanging under the dim light. But now, the woman's head was tilted slightly toward my bedroom, like she had been listening too. A few days later, I stopped hearing normal apartment sounds completely. No footsteps from neighbors, no TVs through the walls, no traffic outside my window at night. It was like the entire building went silent. The moment the sun went down, that silence started affecting me. I couldn't focus at work anymore because I barely slept. Every night I stayed awake staring at my bedroom door, waiting to hear the whispering again. And every night around the same time, it came back, soft, slow, almost impossible to understand. At first, I thought the voice was saying random words. But eventually, I realized it was repeating the same sentence over and over. "Look at me!" The whispers always came from the hallway. One night, I finally forced myself to walk toward the sound instead of hiding from it. My legs felt weak the entire time. The apartment was freezing cold, and the hallway light flickered above the painting like it was struggling to stay on. The whispering stopped the second I stood in front of it. The woman inside the painting looked different again. This time, there was no doubt. She had moved. Originally, both of her hands rested in her lap. Now, one hand hung loosely beside the chair. Her fingers looked unnaturally long, almost reaching the bottom of the frame. I stepped closer without thinking. That's when I noticed something else. The background behind her had changed too. Before, it was just darkness. Now, there was a hallway behind her. A long, narrow hallway that looked exactly like mine. Same walls, same light fixture, same bedroom door at the end. My stomach tightened instantly. Then I heard the whisper again. Not from the hallway this time, from inside the painting. Look closer. The woman's lips weren't moving, but the voice was clear now, calm and quiet, like someone speaking directly into my ear. And when I leaned in near the canvas, I noticed a dark figure standing at the far end of the painted how. And way behind her. After seeing the figure inside the painting, I couldn't think about anything else. I barely ate. I barely slept. Every second I spent in the apartment felt wrong, like I was trapped somewhere that wasn't fully real anymore. The worst part was the figure kept getting closer. Every night, I checked the painting, and every night the dark shape in the hallway, behind the woman, had moved forward a little more. At first, it was just a shadow near the bedroom door in the background. Then it reached the middle of the hallway, slowly, quietly, and the woman never stopped staring at me. I finally decided to search for the artist online. I needed answers. I spent hours digging through old forums, forgotten websites, and archived newspaper articles until I found a name signed faintly in the corner of the painting. Elias Vane. Almost nobody talked about him anymore, but the few things I found made my skin crawl. Years ago, Elias Vane became famous for painting portraits people described as alive. Some buyers claimed the expressions changed overnight. Others reported hearing whispers near the paintings. Most people laughed those stories off until the disappearances started. One article mentioned a collector who vanished from his apartment without explanation. According to neighbors, police found dozens of strange paintings hanging on the walls, all showing empty rooms and dark hallways. Another article said Elias himself disappeared shortly before a gallery exhibition. The police searched his studio for days. They never found him, but they did find one unfinished painting sitting alone in the center of the room, a painting of the studio itself. And inside that painting, standing near the back wall, was Elias Vane staring outward with a terrified expression on his face. My hands were shaking while reading all this. Then I slowly looked up from my laptop toward the hallway. The woman inside my painting wasn't sitting anymore. She was standing now, and the dark figure behind her was gone. The moment I saw the woman standing inside the painting, something inside me broke. I couldn't explain it logically anymore. This wasn't stress. This wasn't lack of sleep. I knew what I was seeing, and somehow, I knew the figure that disappeared from the hallway inside the painting had gone somewhere else. Into my apartment. That night, every life. GHD in the apartment stayed on. I pushed a chair against my bedroom door and sat awake with my phone in my hand, trying to distract myself. But the silence felt heavy, almost alive. It pressed against the walls like something was waiting. Then around 2:30 a.m., I heard footsteps, slow footsteps, coming from the hallway. My entire body froze instantly. The steps were soft, careful, almost dragging slightly across the floor. I stared at the crack beneath my bedroom door, unable to breathe. Shadows moved outside. Someone was standing there. I wanted to call the police, but deep down I already knew they wouldn't find anything. The whisper came next. Open the door. It was the same calm female voice from the painting. I squeezed my eyes shut and stayed completely still. A few seconds later, I heard another sound. Knocking. 3 slow knocks against the bedroom door. The chair I had pushed against the handle trembled slightly, then silence again. Minutes passed. Maybe longer. I honestly don't know. Eventually, I forced myself to look under the door. Nothing was there. I grabbed my phone flashlight and slowly opened the bedroom door. The hallway was empty, but the painting. NG had changed again. The woman was closer now. So close her face nearly filled the entire frame. Her pale eyes looked directly into mine, unblinking, and behind her, barely visible in the darkness, stood another person. At first, I thought it was Elias Vane. Then my flashlight shook in my hand as I realized the figure was wearing my clothes, standing with the same posture, same height, same face. The version of me inside the painting looked terrified, like he was trying to warn me about something just before the hallway light above the painting suddenly went out. The hallway went completely dark after the light burst above the painting. For a few seconds, I couldn't see anything except the weak flashlight shaking in my hand. My heart was pounding so hard, it actually hurt. I pointed the light back toward the painting, and the frame was empty. The woman was gone. The hallway inside the painting was gone too. All that remained was blackness stretched across the canvas like a deep hole opening inside the wall. I stumbled backward instantly. My legs almost gave out beneath me. Every instinct told me to run, but the apartment suddenly felt wrong, like the walls had shifted. While the lights were out. Then I heard breathing, not whispering, real breathing, slow and uneven. Somewhere behind me. I turned around so fast the flashlight slipped from my hand and hit the floor. The beam rolled across the hallway, throwing wild shadows against the walls before stopping near the kitchen entrance. That's when I saw her, standing at the far end of the apartment. The woman from the painting. She looked exactly the same, and completely different at the same time. Her black dress hung unnaturally still. Her skin looked pale gray under the dim light, but her eyes looked alive. Too alive. Too alive. She wasn't blinking. She just stood there watching me silently. I couldn't move. The apartment felt freezing cold now, cold enough that I could see my breath. The woman slowly lifted one hand and pointed toward the hallway wall where the painting used to hang. My flashlight beam shifted slightly, and I nearly screamed. There was a new painting hanging there now. Same old wooden frame, same cracked canvas, but this time, the painting showed my apartment exactly as it looked in that moment. The fallen flashlight, the dark hallway, the woman standing near the kitchen. And inside the painting, I was standing frozen in the center of the hallway, staring outward, with pure terror on my face, while something dark slowly appeared behind me from inside my bedroom door.